Hello and welcome to Used Car Heaven. Lots more to come on this programme, including our car doctor, and in part 2, 2 budget diesels. But first, in part 1, it's big boys toy time, because look at these 2 fantastic cars. Nissan Skyline GTRs, an R33 and an R34, the most recent car. Forget about paying 50 grand for a brand new one, but pay anywhere between 25 and 40 for a used one. Andy, what's the philosophy and the history behind the Skylines, and when did they first come out?
They've been in Japan since about the early 70s. They end up going to more of a progressive sports car for racing use in about the early 90s. And the philosophy basically is to get a very fast car, controllable, four-wheel drive, doesn't understeer and is exciting to drive.
And what do you think made it such a cult car in Japan before it came here?
I think it's because of its speed and its tunability. You know, you can get in Japan, they've done up to 1,000 horsepower. Not really practical on the road, but you know, maybe 700 horsepower on the road is good enough.
A lot of work and development was done at the Nürburgring before the Skylines were launched. What exactly went on there?
Well, the Nürburgring is a long circuit, you know, over 20 miles long, with lots of different corners. A lot of the tyre manufacturers go over there testing because you've got different surfaces, different gradients. So if you can get a car to handle around the Nürburgring, you can get it, it'll handle around any roads.
Now the R33 is the code name for the car that was launched in '97. I mean, what's the sort of basics around that car?
Well, it's the 2.6 twin turbo car, it's 5-speed gearbox, viscous limited slip diff, active four-wheel drive. So most of the things carry on into the R34, which came out in 2000. Just a progressive, more progressive car, 6-speed gearbox, the engine's a bit quicker, the car's a bit shorter, a bit more nimble.
What about head-to-head from a standing start? How do the 2 cars compare there?
34 is just a little bit quicker on 0 to 60, standard on the standard trim. 33 is about 5.2, whereas 34 is about 4.8 seconds to 60.
What are the main differences between UK spec cars and the other cars that are around in the country, particularly the sort of the grey imported ones?
Basically, they've mainly got 3 years warranty, which is quite important with a car of that sort of ilk. They've got leather interior, the new ones. They've got platinum category alarms, proper stereos, speedos. All the lights conform to UK spec, so that's just a few of the modifications.
Andy Middlehurst probably knows more about driving Skyline GTRs than anybody else in this country and has driven them almost to destruction. Now this is an R33 Skyline GTR launched back in 1997. It's got the big alloy wheels on it, the big Brembo brakes. It's also got pretty much a big sort of whale tail spoiler on the rear, but not as big as the one that the R34 has got on. Both cars have a 2.6 litre twin turbo engine, but the R34 gets an extra 30 brake horsepower. The Nissan Skyline GTR really is one of those amazing cars. You can tootle along quite happily, as we're doing now, in third gear doing about 30 miles an hour. Then you see an open stretch of road ahead and you think, right, time to have a bit of fun and floor it and move on a bit. And you let that 2.6 engine kick in with those twin turbochargers and this thing goes like a rocket. The R33 car, which is this one, has 300 brake horsepower. Forget about what you see in the magazines and the press about it having about 270, 275 brake horsepower. That has to do with Japanese regulations. In the real world, this car has 300 brake horsepower. It will get to 60 miles an hour in just over 5 seconds. It will get to 100 miles an hour in around 13 seconds. It has amazing stability and presence on the road. It's got four-wheel drive. It's got four-wheel steering, where all of the wheels move slightly in the same direction to keep you on the right track. I think that the R33, more than the R34, has one of those slightly muted on-road presences. It's the sort of car that you wouldn't really give a second glance to. Certainly not compared to if a Porsche or a Ferrari went past you. But this thing can go past just as quick as one of those cars. So if you're looking for a Skyline and you fancy one of these early R33 cars, what sort of money do you have to pay? Well, if you want a GB spec car rather than a grey import, you need to be looking to spend upwards of £25,000, which is not particularly cheap. But something about this sort of age of car, which is an R-Edge, it's done 31,000 miles, you'd probably need to spend about £30,000 to get a nice, good car like this one.
The Nissan Skyline is so rare you won't even find it listed in used car guides. The few that are about need serious consideration, worth going to someone who knows about them. Blow a turbo or two and it'll cost you big time.
The R34 has been on the market in the UK for around 18 months now. If you wanted to buy this car new, you'd be looking to splash out £54,000. But on the used market, these sort of cars will start at around the 40,000 mark. Something like this with 10,000 miles on the clock, a T-Reg example, would probably sell for about £45,000. Now all that sounds rather a lot of money for a car that carries a Nissan badge, but these are very special cars. These R34 cars are a lot smarter in my opinion than the R33s. The R33s inside look a bit dull and a bit drab and a bit sort of very early 1990s Nissan, whereas these cars have been updated well. They look a lot smarter inside. They've got a slick 6-speed gearbox. They've also got this amazing display on the center dashboard here, which tells you all sorts of information via the graphics screen there, including a G-force monitor to tell you just how quickly you're going round corners and what sort of G-force you're pulling. So what about the raw performance figures for the R34? Well, it is a quicker car. 0 to 60 comes in around 4.5 seconds, top speed limited to 155 miles an hour, and 0 to 100, well, you can get there in just 10 seconds, so it is significantly quicker than the other Skyline GTR. It's also got quite a bit more power. We're talking about 330 brake horsepower. Annoying little things in these Skylines, in fact in both of the cars, are the fact that it's got the indicators positioned on the right-hand stalk, whereas all cars, certainly European cars these days, have them on the left, and even the latest Japanese cars have also switched over. The Skylines unfortunately haven't, so you find yourself going to turn and switching the windscreen wipers on instead. But having said that, forget about that, just enjoy this car's performance. It's a delight to drive. It goes around corners like it was on rails. It's got four-wheel drive. Most of the time the car just uses the rear wheels to drive the car around 100%. But if it finds and it senses that any of the wheels and the brakes and the car is slipping in some way, then it will transfer up to 50% to the front wheels as well. Now, there are not many performance cars that are true four-seaters, but the Skylines, both of them are. You can get 2 adults in the back and there's plenty of space. Luggage, not too much to go in the boot, but I just love the rear view look through the car. Look through the mirror and you just see that enormous rear spoiler.
The R34 Skyline is one fast machine. It feels like a pussycat at low revs, but once you start to press on and those turbos kick in, it takes off. I like the updated exterior and interior of the R34, but this is not a cheap plaything.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Used Car Heaven. Lots more to come in this part of the programme, including our car doctor Simon Hughes will be back in his surgery. But we're concentrating on 2 inexpensive diesels. First of all, a Rover 220 diesel, and then a very nice Mercedes 300 diesel. Now, although the Rover 200 is never going to win awards in terms of beauty and fashion, it is quite reasonably styled inside, and there's also quite a good deal of space for rear seat passengers. And think of it like this: for the same sort of price as this car, you could have a Ford Fiesta. However, this is one step up in terms of rear seat accommodation and also boot space too. So £5.5 grand for something like this, same sort of price for a Ford Fiesta, but with this a lot more space. Rover have long been the symbol of budget British motoring, and the company seems to have staggered from one crisis to another in the past few years, but maybe now it's actually got itself on an even keel. However, this 2.5-year-old 220 diesel injection is probably one of the last cars to be built under the old BMW regime. And things did improve whilst BMW were in control. Gone were the days of producing Friday afternoon cars that, well, didn't go very well at all. And this 220 diesel is actually quite a lively performer, quite surprisingly enough. Now, if you want a diesel and you want a Rover 220 diesel, make sure you get the right one, because there are 2 models to choose from. There's the 220D and there's this, the 220DI, which means diesel injection turbo, and that gets about 30 extra brake horsepower, and you can really feel that extra poke in the car. Fuel economy is excellent though, anything from early 40s to the gallon around town to maybe even 70 if you travel at a discreet 56 miles an hour. And cars like this can start, well, pretty cheaply, as low as £3,000, £3,500 for a decent car.
The Rover 200 is a somewhat surprisingly good car. Think Rover, and many people could be put off buying one. But if it's an economical, reasonably cheap car you want, the Rover 220 diesel is definitely worth a look. Other small cars like the Micra and Fiesta can't offer the space of the Rover.
Whilst the Rover 200 may have a rather bland image to it, I think it's an honest and reliable and solid car to drive. Plus it's got excellent fuel economy, and at these sort of prices you can't really go wrong. Soon we'll be driving a very nice Mercedes diesel, but first here's more from our car doctor, Simon Hughes.
Well, as you can see, we're driving along here, and I think the camera speaks for itself, and it's nice and bumpy in this Citroën Xantia. And this has got a stereotypical Citroën suspension problem, which is deemed as quite quirky and expensive to maintain and repair. But as we're going to find out, it's actually cheaper to maintain and repair than an average ABS system, an airbag system, or even air conditioning. So we're going to nip to the workshop and just see if we can get to the bottom of it. So let's see how we go. Citroën hydropneumatic suspension is simply a balloon of gas in each corner of the car that the car rides on, so that instead of traditional springing, the car can bounce up and down on the balloon. Now on the car we've got 4 spheres, and inside the sphere you can see that we've got the balloon here. It's flexible and it goes on there like that. And we've got 2 of these under the bonnet, and we've also got 2 under the back. So there's one over here, and there's one up here that you can just see here. Right, we're back on the ground, and what we're going to do now is actually replace this sphere here. It's a simple operation, but we're going to lose a bit of hydraulic fluid and we're going to unscrew it. So I've got a rag, which I'm just going to pop underneath to mop up any surplus. Now, I've got a special tool here which is designed for doing this, but in actual fact you can just use an oil filter wrench to do this. So this is going to go onto here like so, and then with a bit of a pull you can see it loosens off. We're simply going to unscrew it. Let's get a little bit of fluid just leaking out there. That's our old one, and we've got to make sure that there's a oil seal still in there. There is, because whenever you get these you get an oil seal with it. Got the new unit here. Have a quick recce to make sure it looks similar. And here we are. The new unit, which has got gas in it, that one's gone flat. We pop it back in. Screw it on. Nip it back up with our tool. Make sure it's tight. Just tighten it up here. Now it's worth noting that you will lose a little bit of fluid at this stage, so you do need to just top up the reservoir before we leave if you get a light flashing on inside. But I'm quite sure, because we only lost an egg cup full, we'll be alright in this case. So we can now remove that and we should be ready to give it a test with all tools removed. So got that out of the way, and that is the same procedure for all four corners of the vehicle. That's out of the way. Going to drop the bonnet and we're going to go for a blast just to confirm that it's okay. But obviously, with us releasing the fluid out of it, we're going to have to get in the car, run it for about 30 seconds or so whilst the vehicle lifts up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the prices that were quoted for the spheres. So we'll just start it up. Main dealer quoted me £60 to £65 per sphere, and they didn't have any in stock. So I rang my local motorist discount store and they quoted me about £20 a piece, which is exactly what we've paid, and that's what we've got. It was more convenient. So I think we've lifted up now. So off we go. Well, I think you can see by this magic carpet ride that we're now totally transformed in the ride, and after that little repair, which wasn't too difficult, we're back to normal with the famous super smooth Citroën suspension.
So you thought a Mercedes-Benz was expensive, did you? Well, if you buy them brand new, they certainly can be. For instance, this little beauty that we found is 5 years old. When it was new, it would have cost at least £32,000, but now with 68,000 miles on the clock and a few years later, this could be yours for as little as £12,500. You kind of know what you're getting when you buy a Mercedes-Benz. Some cars can be a bit basic. You need to delve into the options list to buy the extras like leather upholstery and a smart stereo system and climate control and things like that. And of course, that all adds to the cost. But these E-Class cars do offer a good deal of space, plenty back there for the rear seat passengers, and also quite a good sized boot on the car too. You could of course go for the estate version of this model to give you even more space and versatility. People see you driving around in a Mercedes-Benz and they think, well, there's a person who's obviously got a great deal of money, but not necessarily so. Because if you can pick up a nice car like this for around £12,500, that isn't a fortune. You can only just buy a brand new Ford Focus for that sort of money. And this is a car that's done 68,000 miles, it's got a full Mercedes-Benz service history, and it's in immaculate condition. And this car will run for hundreds of thousands of miles. If you keep it well serviced and well looked after, it'll last you for years. These latest E-Class models were launched back in 1996, so in fact this car is one of the very early ones to roll off the production line. And if you're thinking, well, I want a diesel, I want it to offer good fuel economy, what will this car return? Well, although it's not as good as perhaps Audi diesels or even BMW diesels, it should return upwards of about 25 to the gallon around town. And once you're on the run, you should be looking at certainly mid-30s, maybe towards 40 miles to the gallon of your precious diesel. Very little tends to go wrong on the E-Class range, indeed on most Mercedes-Benz, as long as they've been well looked after and properly serviced. Once a car gets to this sort of age and with this sort of mileage on the clock, though, one thing is worth checking out is the cam chain. Cam chain in this case, that could need replacing. In fact, it probably should do at this sort of age of car, because if that breaks and that snaps on you, it will cause all sorts of havoc inside your engine and will cost you thousands of pounds to set it all right. So check that the cam chain on a car that's done 60 or 70,000 miles has been replaced. Now, the E-Class, whilst quiet and refined, is not a particularly sporty car to drive, not compared to, say, a BMW 5 Series, more a cruiser.
The 300 diesel that we drove had all the attributes you would expect of a Mercedes-Benz. Solid, sturdy and linked with the 300 diesel unit, good economy. It's quiet and refined, and for just over £12,000, a real bargain. The more recent turbo diesels are even better cars, faster and quieter.
I don't think you'd find a nicer Mercedes-Benz than this, and if you're looking for a diesel, this would be the ideal car for you. Remember, stick a private plate on this and no one would know it's 5 years old. That's all for this week's Used Car Heaven. Join us again at the same time next week.